that, my friends, is the sound of the 1969 Pontiac GTO the Judge, and in my opinion, it is one of the coolest sounding startups in Gran Turismo 7. Everyone missed him say here, and for this Gran Turismo 7 video, I want to take a quick moment to talk about this cutie here, which also happens to be my dream car, and then I'm going to take it out to the Nurburgring Nordschleife to see what kind of lap time it can get. So the 1969 Pontiac GTO is part of the second generation, which went from 1968 to 1972, and Pontiac was starting to face some pretty intense competition from other automakers. So for example, you had Chevrolet coming out with the Camaro and the Chevelle, and you had Plymouth coming out with the Roadrunner. And for Pontiac's answer to this, they came out with the Judge. And the Judge does draw inspiration from the skit Here Comes the Judge from the show Road and Mars Laughing. It was a pretty popular show at the time, and the Judge was supposed to be a low cost option for the GTO, especially to compete with the Roadrunner, but it ended up costing more, up to $400 more depending on the options that you got. For $334 more, you get the 400 cubic inch Ram Air 3 engine, which will get you around 365 horsepower and 445 feet-pound of torque, which was about 15 more than the base model's engine. And for $390 more, you get the Ram Air 4 engine, which will get you 370 horsepower. At least that's what Pontiac said, as rumor on the street says that the Ram Air 4 engine provided way more horsepower, supposedly over 400 horsepower, but again, those are just rumors. And for getting the Judge, you'd get a most likely carousel red GTO Judge, as for a while they only came out in that color. You get the option of the Ram Air 3 or 4 engine. You get the option of having the hideaway headlights and the hood tachometer. You get the Judge decals on both sides of the car, along with the pinstripe along the side of the car, and you get the rear wing, which supposedly provided downforce, but at least in Gran Turismo 7 it produces a whopping 0 downforce. And while the Judge did help with sales for a brief moment, unfortunately it wasn't enough, as the Judge would eventually lose enough sales to where it got discontinued in 1971, and the GTO would end up getting dropped in 1974. But that's enough of me yapping about the GTO Judge. Let's go ahead and see how it does around the Nurburgring Nordschleife. Alright, the 1969 Pontiac GTO the Judge is about to get on its way, and already there's quite a bit of wheel spin going on, and that is thanks to its default tire, which is the Comfort Medium tires. And I do want to test these cars with factory settings, so whatever tires that these cars came with, I'm going to test it under that. Whatever suspension and transmission settings that these cars have, I'm going to test it with that. And yeah, with the Comfort Medium tires, got to be really careful getting on the throttle, as this car loves to generate a lot of wheel spin, and especially with this car having around 445 feet-pound of torque, got to be really careful getting back on the throttle, and also got to brake pretty early because this car weighs quite a bit, around 3,549 pounds. And again, you see me right there, just being really careful with the throttle input, as this car is generating quite a bit of wheel spin, and got to be careful with getting on the brakes to make sure that this car doesn't want to do anything silly. Nice and early on the brakes so I don't overshoot it, and I'm going to go ahead and shift up early into 4th gear to try to get a bit more grip out of the exit of this turn, and to try not to get too much wheel spin. And this is where shortly we're going to see one huge weakness of the car. Sure, the handling is not the best, the braking is not the best, but those are going to be minor problems, as the transmission is probably going to be the biggest problem for the Judge, as this car has a really short transmission setting, and it's only going to be able to peak to around 132 miles an hour, and that's the fastest that this car is going to go around the Nordschleife. So anytime I go on the streets, that's going to be a lot of time lost once I hit the top speed. Gonna brake real nice and early, trying to make sure that I don't overshoot this turn. Pretty easy to do in this car, as the brakes are not the best, but again, those are a bit more of a smaller problem compared to the transmission, especially when you're trying to test out how fast cars can go on the Nordschleife. And unfortunately, this car does not have 5 gears, it's only 4 gears for short gears, and only able to hit the maximum speed of 132 miles an hour. So that's going to result in quite a bit of time loss, especially once other cars join the leaderboard. So going to brake nice and early to make sure that I don't overshoot this braking point, as that's a bit of a bad habit of mine, and just be nice and gentle getting back on the throttle to make sure that I don't get too much wheel spin to the point where I start losing control. And go up into fourth gear and just hope that I don't hit the max speed, which unfortunately is going to be really close. Actually braking just in time for this left turn, and going to go ahead and brake just after the riding on the ground. Nice and careful getting back on the throttle, as this part does get just a little bit bumpy, almost going off the track right there. And get a brake nice and early, try to hit the apex, and again just nice and gentle getting back on the throttle. Just trying not to push the cover medium tires way too much. I'm gonna go ahead and go into the miss curve. Gonna miss that curve and just go just a little bit wide and actually hit the apex of the third curve. So name does not check out for me. Brake nice and early, especially right here. This can be a bit of a problem spot for some cars, as that can make the cars want to swing around and lose control. Luckily, the judge was able to take that pretty nicely, not too much of a fuss. Brake nice and early once again, down into third gear as we are going a bit downhill, so gotta brake just a little bit earlier. And again, nice and early on the brakes, go up into fourth gear, and even here it's still getting a bit of wheel spin, so you gotta be careful getting back on the throttle. I think third gear would have been even worse, so luckily I think fourth gear was the better way to go about this. Gonna go flat through here, and the bump almost unsettles the car a bit. The car does want to start to swing around just a little bit. Getting ready to enter the Castle Chen, which is one of the longer straights, and you can just try to be really careful getting back on the throttle. Any unnecessary wheel spin is going to result in even more time loss, which is definitely not going to help, as there's a good chance I'm going to hit the max speed in the judge. And just trying to go through these turns as quickly as possible. And here comes this kink. Can I take it flat out? Luckily the answer is yes, even on the comfort medium tires. That is a flatter corner for the judge. And then here comes the bravery corner, which is going to be the next upcoming left turn. Got to be really careful through here. Going to do a quick dab on the brakes. Here we go, quick dab on the brakes. The car slides around just a little bit, but it actually helps with the car's rotation, and the car's stepping out just a little bit, so I was getting a bit too excited right there. And for this kink, got a lift off of the throttle. The car almost understeers off of the track, braking nice and early before the curb on the left starts. Down into third gear, I'm not going to use second nor first gear, as the transmission settings are pretty short in this car, so only third and fourth gears. And every time I have to upshift or downshift, that is going to cost quite a bit of time. Braking nice and early for the carousel. Got to be really careful over here. Try not to get too much wheel spin in the middle of the turn, especially on the comfort medium tires. And yeah, you can hear all that wheel spin going on. That's going to be a bit more time down the drain, because this car just loves to generate a lot of wheel spin on those comfort medium tires. Brake a bit early for this next left turn. Just trying to be really careful through here, as here comes all these twisting turns, and not too sure how the Pontiac is going to react to some of these turns. Going to be a bit aggressive on the throttle, and that's going to be enough for the car to want to step out quite a bit, but luckily recover it. And then go into a cute little slide for this right turn, which did help with the car's rotation a bit. And then going to get a little aggressive with these curves. Luckily the Pontiac did a fine job with those curves, not too much of a fuss there. And again, just being really careful on the throttle. Gonna go down into third gear momentarily, and unfortunately brake a bit too late and go pretty wide, which is gonna cost me a bit of time, and especially getting that bit of understeer. And just trying to be really careful through here, and unfortunately the transmission settings is just gonna be a bit more of a problem here, hitting the rev limiter on third gear and then missing the apex of that corner right there. And unfortunately I do have to hit fourth gear and then back into third, which is gonna cost me a bit of time due to the time it takes to shift gears. The gear shifting is a bit slow on the judge. Back into fourth gear, got a lift on this corner to make sure that I don't end up going off of the track. Braking nice and early for that jump. Nice and easy getting back on the throttle. Don't want to understeer onto the grass, especially with this dip or this downhill part coming up. Got to be really careful to make sure that the car doesn't step out. Lifting off of the throttle. Just trying to be really careful to here, because this bumpy part can really upset the judge. So just got to play a bit safe right there. brake when the path on the right starts. Staying on 4th gear for now. Gonna bring myself towards the right side of the track and to get a bit more braking, just trying to maintain the car's momentum, which is a bit easier said than done as this car can get a bit understeery. Down into 3rd gear for the mini carousel, and just trying to be really careful getting back on the throttle, trying to reduce the amount of wheel spin that I'm getting. And then for here, I'm going to stay on 4th gear, brake before the curb on the left ends, and just got to be a bit more careful with the curb as that did bounce the car around a little bit. And again, just trying to be careful getting back on the throttle. The car steps out just a little bit, even on 4th gear, so that was a bit of a slightly sketchy moment, but luckily nothing more happened there. But yeah, it's gonna be right here at the very long final straight where this car, the judge, is only gonna hit 129 miles an hour for the time being, which is just gonna result in more time loss as this car is not accelerating anymore. It's not going any faster, even losing a bit of speed as I'm going up the hill. But luckily the hill's not going to last too long. Getting ready to approach the Bilstein Bridge. Gonna go ahead and hit 130 miles an hour in just a moment. There we go. 131 miles an hour. Is that possible? Unfortunately, no. Just gonna hit 130 miles an hour. Gonna go ahead and get ready to brake nice and early. Braking right now down into 3rd gear and luckily make it without any fuzz. Now just got to be really careful for the final couple of turns, just trying to be really careful getting back on the throttle. Unfortunately, end up overshooting the final turn and then trying to get really aggressive, and the car's just going to step out. And with that, I was able to get a 8 minutes 25.7 second lap. And this makes the 1969 Pontiac GTO the judge the fastest car in my leaderboard, and also the only car I've tested so far. And I did find another car that has a very similar performance point rating to the judge, so that's going to be the next car I'm going to test, and I can't wait to see if this car will be able to topple the judge or fall behind it. But that's all from me. If you guys like this video, you can hit the like, subscribe, and all that good stuff. And I do have a little story for you guys. So ever since Gran Turismo Sport, I've been wanting to do something like this where I test every single car that the game offers, but unfortunately that never really came to be. I did test some cars, and I originally used Catalunya as my test track, but I recorded the bits or some bits for some of the cars, but unfortunately nothing came out of that, and I kind of just shelved it for a long time. And even in Gran Turismo 7 before now, I've been wanting to do something like this, but I kind of just never got around to it until now. And that's because there were a couple cars that I got to see in real life that really got me wondering, like, how fast could these cars go around the Nordschleife? And then also I've been watching some videos from people like Fossil Field, Tijni, Jimmy Broadbent, and Broadfree1322, where they take a whole bunch of cars out and just give them a go at different tracks, see how fast they can go, whether they're tuned or not, or if they have the balance of performance on or not. And yeah, just see how fast they can go, how well they can perform. And yeah, so that basically got me inspired to, is like, you know what, let's go ahead and give it a go and try to put my little spin on it and just have a little bit of fun and see how fast these cars can go over the Nordschleife with their default settings. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this, and yeah, that's gonna be it for me. Thank you guys so much for watching this, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Take care now.